Quail are a great animal to add to any homestead, especially if you're an urban homestead, because they're going to be a great animal that you can raise for eggs as well as meat, and it's going to be a pretty quick turnaround for both. What's also really great about quail is they're a quiet, small animal that don't need too much space. We'll talk about a few different ways that you can actually house them today, from an indoor area to something that's on your porch or patio, reusing some other spaces that you might already have that you're using in your garden perhaps, as well as a bigger setup in case you do want to have a bigger setup or you have the space to provide it for them. So we'll get started and talk about what they are now. And the first one is literally just getting started with what you have. This means that you can upcycle any type of materials that you already have. For example, maybe using some old furniture, you could use dressers, an old playhouse, you could use pallets, anything of the likes to actually turn into a coop. What I like about this is if you're getting started or thinking about raising quail, it's a really low investment cost and you can start to test out what it's really like to raise quail. This is how we started when we first started off, and let me show you what we used. This is the setup that we used when we first started. It's actually just a really oblong, weird shape of furniture. I'm not even sure what it was, but we actually saw it on bulk garbage day and we just grabbed that baby up, and then we went ahead and just changed it up so that it met our needs. There were already some cage aspects to it, but we went ahead and removed the bottom so that there was just some galvanized wire down there on the bottom, and this way the birds could, their droppings could go just down there. We added it to our outdoor run in our chicken coop so that everything was just in one area, and when we fed them, which we had this system over here, all of the feed could drop down and it didn't really matter. Quail are super messy birds, so a lot of times when they eat, food will go everywhere. I definitely suggest that when you think about the feed that you're going to be giving your quail, we use NatureServe here at ours. It's packed with a high protein diet for our quail, which is really great, but you're using something that is going to have some type of grating over it so that if they do eat it, it's not just like flying everywhere. If you're looking to conserve space, one way that you can build your coop for your quail is actually utilizing the space underneath furniture, whether it be a bench or a table. This is a great way to save space in your patio or backyard without adding too much for your quail. It's great if you're just getting started and you don't have a large amount of area. Of course we do, so we've never used this method, but I'll throw up some pictures of what this could look like. And what's really great here is, again, you're taking over a space that you're already utilizing on your porch. You just want to make sure that you have an easy, accessible way to be giving your quail both their feed and their water, and it's a way that you can still make sure that you're cleaning the area. There's a washable surfaces that you can use so that it's not too dirty, because again, quail are quite messy animals. As we think about repurposing different spaces that you might already have, another thing that you could think about is repurposing a vertical garden. In this sense, you could take a vertical garden setup, and in the top section, maybe you have your plants. In the bottom section, you have your quail. What's really great about this is when you're going to tend to your plants, you can also be tending to your quail, feeding them, watering them, and then the waste that you get from your quails, you can then recycle and use as a compost later on in your garden. This is really great because you're going to get to have your quail within your garden. You can also take any of the food that you have, maybe some of the clippings from your garden, and actually give it to the quail. Quail love to forage and have different types of vegetation. I definitely suggest looking and making sure that what you're growing is safe for them first, but it's a great way to add some nice little goodies to their diet outside of the type of feed they are already giving them, as well as making your garden beautiful and not taking up too much space. When researching quail coops, oftentimes you're going to see that they're quite short in height. This is because quail are mostly ground dwellers, and if they do get afraid, they will pop up and they can hurt their necks if they do pop up. But another type of setting that you can build out for your quail is an aviary type setting. This is great because you could actually create something like this in a porch, a nice porch aviary, or if you have a bigger space, you can do this as well. We've thought about building a nice aviary setting for our quail. We have yet to do it, but it is something that we've thought about, especially since we built our new chicken coop we've been thinking about different ways that we might want to house our quail as well. And if you have more room, then an aviary style might be really great for you. Some things to think about when you're building this are adding different types of perches, plants, rocks, a whole little environment for your quail so that they can hide, go into some of the bush, and make it feel like they're out in the wild. And this is going to be closest to their natural habitat, so it's really great in that setting. When building this out, you do want to make sure that you think about ways to keep them dry and free from draft. So make sure that there's areas that are going to be draft free. Similar to the furniture that we built out, we had that one section that was draft free, as well as making sure that the top is waterproof or rainproof. So if it does snow or rain, they aren't going to get really wet from that, because we really don't want them to get wet and cold, especially in those chillier winter months. Another really great setup that I think is pretty trendy as well, and similar to what you can do with chickens, is creating a quail tractor. This is a great way if you want to make sure that your quail are able to get different types of goodies in the ground and little types of critters. Then you can have this and you can move it every so often so that they're getting some fresh new area. When building this out, definitely make sure that you are building it out with some mesh all around. It is predator proofed so that nothing can get in, especially at night. This is a hot item for predators, and they're definitely going to want to try to get in if they can. And when you're building it out, make sure that you're building it with a nice light material, maybe something like PVC that's good and weatherproofed. You're again providing them a space that is nice and covered from any of the crazy elements. And if it is really sunny, making sure that you still have a shaded area for them to go to, and they're not sitting and baking in a sunny area, because nobody wants that. But this is a great way if you do have more space and you want to help churn and give some nutrients back to your soil, then you can do this as well, and it will help scratch some of the soil as well. Depending on how many quail you have, it can do a lot more work. Same with what you would do with chickens. We have yet to do this, but I do think it's a really great option and something that can be really fun for your backyard and a fun build project. The final type of setting that I'm going to talk about today is the one that we actually use, and that is stacked cages. This is probably the most common way to house quail. It makes it really easy to automate feed, water, and egg collection. If you are churning out quail pretty quickly and you're harvesting them, this is really great because you can divide it out with the age of the quail and which ones you're going to be harvesting next. You're also able to easily get out eggs. You can sort them by different ages, you can sort them by genders, so you know exactly what males and females are in cages. And it's just a really easy, simple system that you can start to add to as you get more and more quail. Some things to think about is making sure that you have it a clean system. There's easy ways to manage your waste, and when building it out, you forward think on how you want to build out your automated systems. You're thinking about how you want to set up your water so that everyone in their cages is able to get free unlimited water. You're setting up a system to get feed, and you're setting up a system for the waste management so that you're able to easily clean it out and droppings don't go on any of the other birds. Overall, there are a lot of different ways that you can be raising quail and housing them, and it's really up to the type of space that you have, how many quail you want, and what type of setting you want to get started with. If you don't have much, I definitely suggest starting with recycled materials, making it into an old dresser that you can pull at the bottom, add some different mesh materials to it, and really get started with what you have. Just make sure that when you are thinking about the housing for your quail, that you think about a few things. First off, the height of the cage. Like I said earlier, quail are ground dwellers. They really don't need a high cage, and you want to, if you are not going to be doing an aviary style, create a cage that's no higher than 12 inches. This is because if they do pop up, fly up because of a spooked sound, that they do not hurt themselves when they do pop up. You want to make sure that it's predator proof, especially when you go into the colder months or nighttime. Quail can be a nice treat for a predator, and you want to make sure that they're protected on all sides. This is something that you definitely want to think about, especially if you're doing a tractor setup or an aviary type setup, so that there isn't the ability to climb underneath the cages. It's also important to keep in mind of the ventilation. You want to make sure that there's ways for air to flow through so that you do not have stale waste in there and a high buildup of ammonia or any other bad scents, especially if you're going to be doing an indoor type of coop. You want to make sure that you're able to provide a nice clean area, and you might want to provide some bedding in that area as well. This way it's going to collect up a lot of that waste, make it not smell as much, and just provide a cleaner space for your quail. If you're looking for the optimal amount of eggs, then you want to make sure that you have around 12 to 14 hours of daylight. In the summer, you're definitely going to get that when you have your quail outside, but if you're keeping them in a garage, an indoor setting, or a barn, then you might need to supplement with some additional lighting so that you are still able to get a good amount of eggs, especially in the colder, darker months. And always make sure that you're cleaning your quail cages out and you're providing a clean space for them. We love raising quail. I hope that this is helpful in deciding how you can start to house them. And best of luck. Make sure to stay tuned because we have so much quail content, and I'll add the playlist right here.